Look, I'm on board as much as most of you with the fuck Sony and the PS4 bandwagon, but mainly I'm into flaming them, if one is to call it that, for reasons that are actually real. It seems that people had, no surprise, selective hearing when it came to the PS4 conference. Although some might say this could become a war of semantics, technically what some people have said is true, because this is sort of a pseudo quick video response for my friend Varmint Coyote, who is reading a post by another user on another forum about why he's done with Sony professionally. I'm done with them because of their business practices, and of the things that I'm going to address in this video, it's still bullshit. Don't make no mistake about that. Especially when considering what Jim Sterling said in the Jimquisition. Links to everything I'm going to be talking about is going to be in the underbar, just so that everybody is clear that I'm going to be trying to do as much show, don't tell here as possible, so that hopefully everybody can get things straight. So, the charge is that the PlayStation 4 is not backwards compatible. This is true in terms of physical media discs. It is not compatible with the PS3. It will not be compatible with physical editions of the PS1 or the PS2 games of any sort or type. Now, but that doesn't mean it's not technically backwards compatible. In fact, through cloud gaming, through a cloud service, it has this really funky name, I can't remember off the top of my head. You will be streaming, basically, cloud gaming, any game that is on the PlayStation Network, but if you have an obscure title, or if you have some Japanese titles, we don't even know if this thing's going to be region locked, which I'm betting it probably will, which is a load of bull crap in and of itself, but that's a whole nother rant entirely. Again, I wanna get at Sony for the stupid and the terrible things and the terrible decisions that they make based off of fact, not just reactionaryism. I can speak, I assure you of that. Because it eliminates any problems. I mean, there is some reasoning behind it. It doesn't mean it's smart, it doesn't mean it's great, but there is some reasoning behind it. This breaks the problem of needing to have the actual hardware itself being bogged down with actually having to compute all this stuff. Now you might say, it's a fucking PS4, Octavius. It should be able to handle PS3, PS2 definitely, and PS1 games like they're nothing. Well, yes, but the all of the ideas, well, no, okay. Here's what's likely. Now, this is where I'm jumping off the fact train for a moment. Here's what's likely to happen. They bought a cloud gaming service. They bought, or a cloud service, streaming service. So they wanted to figure out a way. On one hand, they want to figure out ways to limit costs. If you build a PS1, a PS2, and a PS3 into your PS4, then that drives cost up. And since they're selling these consoles at a loss, see Nintendo with the Wii, they've got to find a balance. How much of a loss is acceptable as far as their hardware goes? So this was a way to continue in with the backwards compatibility and also justify the reason for the acquisition of a cloud gaming service that was created, by the way, by the creator of Earthworm Jim, which I find very interesting and odd that you go from making a phenomenal title like the early Earthworm Jims, and now you're head of a cloud gaming service. But okay, so we're flaming them because it's not backwards compatible, but it's only not backwards compatible with the physical copies. Although, to be honest with you, I don't like the idea of streaming any more than you, because what this does is it gives Sony greater control. You don't technically own that cloud game. It doesn't technically exist. It's ethereal. It's a stream. It's something that doesn't technically physically exist on your system. But see, therein lies another plus. You don't have all of these massive digital PS1, PS2, and PS3 titles, and PS3 titles can be quite big. We're talking Blu-ray, people. Gumming up your hard drive. And considering this system is supposed to have a substantial hard drive, although they didn't, a substantially big hard drive, though they don't give details on that, that might not be a bad thing, because the one problem I do have with the PS3, and I think Sony did listen about this, is, I mean, granted, I have one of the low-end ones that's like only 80 gigs, but I filled it. I'm constantly having to sacrifice things that I really like, things that I still technically own and can always re-download through the PSN store. But I hate it. I hate it. And the only thing that I can do is I can go out and I can buy a bigger hard drive. I can't put a terabyte drive in this thing because it can only handle about 720 gigs worth of data storage before it won't recognize it, because, yeah, they didn't think of that. But then that's more work for me. And just like with some of the other things I'm going to be talking about in this broadcast here, because this one might be a bit of a long one, I have to apologize on that. The Some of the game saves and some game content is not transferable to non-native hard drives. So all my work, all my what I've built up in the PS3, either I've got to constantly just keep deleting stuff, or I've got to bite the bullet and take the chance that at least the games that I like most, with the save content I like most, and the game content I like most, will transfer over. But there's no guarantee. There's no master list. Sony knows developers don't like people sharing game saves, and yet they won't make up a master list of games that they know won't transfer over in their FAQ about how to replace your hard drive. But again, that's extra cost to me. That's an extra headache for me. And if I do this wrong, that's turning my expensive PS3 into an expensive paperweight. But okay, so that was one of the main things that was out there. Technically, PS4 is backwards compatible. But the reasoning behind it, part of it's business, part of it is convenience to the consumer. It's still kind of bullshit. You know, because they're trying to say, well, at least in terms of the PS3 games, because the architecture of the game is of the system is so different, we can't have that featured onto the PS4. Well, you're going to be streaming PS1, 2, 3, and 4 games to the PS Vita, a major feature, links down in the underbar, that you have touted because you want us to buy a Vita, after saying that PS3 games would never be on the Vita prior to this generation. You've already contradicted yourself, Sony, which is already bullcrap in and of itself, but I digress here. Excuse me. And so, like, with me, I'm just one of these people who I'm like, okay, hate on the PS4, because to be honest with you, what did we see? We saw a whole bunch of sequels, and here's the bigger problem here. BioWare's lead artist says that development costs will mean that the leap between PS3 and PS4 isn't going to be like it was between the PS3 and the PS2. Meaning that even though it's a next-gen console capable of next-gen graphics, or at least that's what they are saying. I have not seen any next-gen graphics out of any of the presentations there. I've seen stuff that could be easily done on the PS3, but I digress. They're not willing to give any more dev cycles that are needed for Super HD games, because they're not even giving HD games the proper HD game dev cycle. You guys don't realize this, but a big reason why there's so many problems with a lot of these modern games is they're applying a standard definition dev cycle to an HD game. In fact, the Final Fantasy, and I'll try to find that link, one of the Final Fantasy creators was talking about this, how so many games are graphically driven now that gameplay, story, and mechanics are what suffers. And I can't say, I have no evidence to say he's wrong. I've had so many frustrations trying to play console games in this gen than I have ever had. And it frustrates me, to say the least. But it's because they're not getting the extended dev cycles for the games now. And so we're going into the next gen, which is supposed to be a leap in technology, graphics, gameplay, all of this stuff. And I'm seeing nothing but same old with a slightly different coat of paint. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that the Circle Jerk PS4 conference, as it was, wasn't spectacular unless you're somebody who's already going to buy the system, in which case you're like, oh my god, you know. And I'm not one of them, but I came into it with an open mind, and I saw nothing that was really all that awe-inspiring. And there's a reason for that, because you're not going to get next-gen graphics, or you're going to get slightly next-gen graphics for next-gen prices. Thanks, but no thanks. But last but not least is the bigger pile of bull crap. Because again, they're trying to say that the architecture won't work. Jim Sterling was talking about this, and they updated it, that through streaming, they may be able to allow you to buy your, not buy, but to utilize or to use your PSN content. So all the DLC, all the games you've bought right now, all of the backlog of PS1, PS2 titles that you've been buying on your PS3, as of right now, they are not going to be compatible with the PS4. You are not going to be able to transfer them over. And they have no plans to make that any easier. So the rant in there about rebuying these games, this is literally what Sony is going to want to have you do. And it's every bit as ridiculous as it sounds. I have ridiculous amounts of money invested in my PSN purchases, from full games to minis, to DLC, to PS1 games and a few PS2 games and all this other stuff that I am very thoroughly invested in when it comes to my PSN stuff. Part of another reason why I'm running out of hard drive space, but the rest of it is with these stupid mandatory game installs, which and you factor in at least what's rumored, that because of all these new services, including being able to share your gameplay, because yeah, that's really going to help the Let's Play community, right? Which I personally, because I've seen way more really terrible Let's Plays than really good ones. For everyone who actually puts efforts into their Let's Plays, there are people who are absolutely mind-bogglingly terrible. It's part of the reason why I decided not to get into it, because I just don't have the proper time to give to my Let's Plays. And I'm not going to do that to my audience. I'm not going to force you to sit through me trying my hardest to do something that I just don't have the time right now or the editing software to do. But now everybody with a PS4 is going to be a Let's Player. Oh yeah, oh joy, I'm really excited about that. But the talk is that almost everything on PSN is going to go into pay-for-play. This was the main advantage that I loved about PSN over Xbox Live. I didn't have to pay for a premium service with Sony to play fucking multiplayer. I'm sorry for the language, but this just pisses me off to no end. But again, this last bit is rumored for right now. We have no evidence of it just yet, but the word is you're going to have to pay for things like multiplayer on PSN because they want to become like Xbox Live. And everybody's cheering this instead of realizing that that's not a good thing.